Hey, this is Matt. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go over Zach's story, and we're going to go over his early life, and we're going to go over how he got into credit card fraud. So check it out.
So I was born in Tampa, Florida. So I'm originally from this area.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but mother,
I thought you were born
father,
in Washington.
And no, lived there like about 6 years, and then we came back to Florida. So, but
all right,
you know,
I didn't know that.
So, born in Tampa, Florida, lived with my mother, father, one brother, two sisters. I was the baby of the bunch. I was really the accident. You know, I came, my oldest, my oldest sister is like 7 years older than me. So when I'm like 5 or 6, they're like 13, 14 wanting to go out, and they were always stuck babysitting me is kind of the earlier memories that I have. Elementary school, I was kind of a class clown. I used to like to act out, get a lot of attention. And I guess that was to make up for the fact that I was the baby kid.
See that,
you know, in high school, I kind of played football and was a nerd. I used to play chess. I was in drama class and speech. So I used to, performing in front of people was my forte. For a minute, I wanted to be a stand-up comic. So I had like...
I didn't know that. See,
yes,
I didn't know that either.
I had like 7 routines where I told stories.
Are you serious?
Yes, and animated and act them out, different jokes, whatever. You know, and I mean, that was kind of my ambition to go forward, to be a comic.
And you think you're hilarious, so I can see.
Yeah, I do. I do laugh at my own jokes.
Yes.
I've been told that's a problem. Because I do believe I'm
well, you're
hilarious.
like, everybody, well, somebody out there's laughing. No, Jack. I mean, no, Zach. Nobody else. It's just you.
It's my fault. You laugh at your jokes, but that's cool. That's all right. I went to college at the University of Texas.
So why didn't you become a comedian? Did you ever try and be a comedian?
Yes, I've been in talent. I've won talent shows. And there were comedy clubs here called Giggles on Del Mabry. And so I've been there. I used to be an opening act for a couple of people. I don't know. I think it was more of the stage fright. I don't know what it was. It was just like, I was better at stealing other people's routines and kind of coming up with ones of my own.
I can see that too. I can see that.
So I started stealing at an early age.
I say that a lot. That could be like a drinking game where it's like take a shot every time COX'S.
Well,
I can see that.
Yeah. Well, and see, I felt like I could do other people's comedy bits better than them.
Right.
You know, so I would do other people's comedy bits and they would crack up laughing, but I was doing somebody else's bit. You know, it was hard for me to come up with ones of my own. A lot of comics steal other people's material, but they also have writers, people that write.
Right. Well, you know, another thing,
them.
you know, Seinfeld said this, because there'll be many, many times where I'm just having a conversation with somebody and I say something funny or they say something funny. Seinfeld was like, he said, well, what I started doing was he kept like a notebook, and he would pull out a notebook right then, because you'll think, oh man, I need to remember that. That's a good joke. But then you don't. So he would write it down right then.
Right.
And then before you know it, you have a list of jokes. So that's I guess a technique. And I've met, what's the guy I met? I did his podcast. He's a David, is it David Lucas? I think it's David Lucas. Is Danny with Concrete interviewed him. We watched him at Giggles.
Right.
And he's been.
Is Giggles still there, by the way?
I don't know if it's still called Giggles, but it's like the comedy club or something like that.
I need to go by there. I love comedy. I love stand-up comics.
Yeah, but I'm saying like he can tell you all about it. He's in LA. Like he'll take my.
I still have one buddy that I knew from high school that is a stand-up comic and who made his living doing that. He was on the circuit. So I mean, it was an aspiration. I just never went back to it. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it's tough. Like his thing, like it's no joke. Like, and he actually worked at the comedy club for like a year or two. You know, he's like, you put it like you're like a bouncer, like you put in your dues.
Yes. But
anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But but you know, acting has always been my stick. Since I've been out, I've been wanting to get back into certain plays at certain theaters. Like that, to me, that's a great pastime. I love being on stage and acting out. So this is a great hobby right here as well. Went to college.
I can see that.
Thank you. Went to college, partial scholarship, University of Texas, where I moved to Austin. This was like back in '87. So I moved to Austin to start school. That's where I went to college, Hook'em Longhorns. Once I was probably in Austin about 2 weeks when I met my first wife. Her name is Jackie. We just started dating right off the bat. Like we were attracted to each other and we were talking. So we were going out and we probably didn't know each other 3 months before she was pregnant. So once she got pregnant, I just proposed. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And we got married and kind of moved in together. She was living with her mom when I met her and going to school. And I was, of course, living on my own. So once she got pregnant, she just moved in. So when she moved in, we got married. She moved in. We did pretty good together for a while. We were a pretty good team. We started when we combined our income because we both started working. So once we started working, we were able to buy because I had a piece of shit car.
Right.
And so we were able to buy another car, Isuzu Impulse. You remember those cars?
Yeah.
I don't know why I got my big ass in an Isuzu Impulse. I have no idea why I folded up and got into that sucker. But I used to get into that thing. It was one of those Italian, rich, cool guys' cars, so I had to get one. The
Isuzu is not an Italian car.
Listen, Italian people drove that car. Italian muscle men. People thought they were the...
So what else? All
right. So, eventually she gave birth to our son named Richard.
Okay.
And we were still working. We were doing pretty good for a while. I think all in all, it was 6 years we were together. Didn't have many problems, going through school. And then her and my son died in a car accident,
right.
Which was kind of devastating.
Right. So what happened there? Where you were working?
In the summertime, I took jobs, full-time jobs, just to make sure I saved up enough money for when we were in school. So at that time, I was working at a company called Pollock Paper, and I was a warehouse kind of customer service type of person. And the situation was one day we used to take turns on who would drive to work just to save gas. So we would only take one car. We wouldn't take the other car. So she drove me to work. She was going to drop our son off. And my first wife had an issue of because in Austin, there's a lot of 2-lane roads. So she had an issue of overtaking and passing cars that are slow in front of her, right. Especially in Isuzu, It's hey, this sucker can blow. So I'm going to put it to the test. And so obviously what happened, she tried to overtake a car and there was a truck coming the other way. And so sometimes those cars don't want you to pass them. I don't know what this is. This is what I imagine, I guess, in my head. So she tried to overtake the car. And when she tried to turn, the truck clipped the car and it hit her and smashed her against the windshield. But my son went through the windshield from the back in a car seat. So they were both pronounced dead at the scene. So what I remember about that day is my boss calling me in to the office. And I always imagine that when something like that happens, you kind of feel the loss of the presence,
Right.
The essence, because I think usually some people oh, something's wrong. I never even had that type of sense. I never had that sense until he actually said it. Because when he was struggling, I'm sitting there going, I'm thinking he's about to fire me.
Right.
His whole demeanor was hey, can you?
Oh, it's that intuition. Suddenly, everything, things subtly, everything's just off. Nothing's really different. Nothing's really not right, but it's just off enough that you get that sense that something's wrong.
I thought I would have. That's what I was saying. I thought I would have.
Oh,
that.
You thought you would? Oh, but you didn't.
I didn't. And so when he's struggling through it, my mind started going, is this dude about to fire me?
Right.
And I'm thinking okay, I did take that last week. I probably shouldn't have. That's what's calculating in my mind is he's, I got something to tell you. So when he told me, I wanted to bust out laughing. What? Come on, man. Why would you tell me something like that? But he had even arranged for me to go to the hospital, for me to get a ride to the hospital because I didn't have my car. Because he's asking me that. He goes, did you drive here to work. That's what was all bizarre. He's like,
Right.
because he's trying to understand my situation.
Yeah, he's trying to make arrangements for you.
Right,
because
like,
he's
did you
thinking
drive-
you're about to be distraught and not understand what's going on, and somebody needs to kind of take care of
and
you.
that's what he was asking me. So the way he was describing it was kind of putting me in the frame, like, this dude's going to fire me and wants to know how I'm going to get off his property.
Right.
So he made arrangements for me to get to the hospital to identify the bodies, and I guess at that point, I would say my world changed. You know, it went from a team effort to a solo effort immediately. My wife was Mexican and black, and her mom was Mexican, and her and I were I would say very close, because her mom had a boyfriend that was an alien, an illegal alien that was here. So we used to make wetback jokes all the time,
Right.
you know, and they were teaching me Spanish and all that stuff. We were pretty close. Her mom was absolutely destroyed because there went.
Oh yeah,
Because,
of course.
well, Jackie was her only daughter, and there went her daughter and grandson in one point. So it was devastating. So, what I tell people is, you know, we talked at the beginning a little bit, and it just tapered off, and then just one day she stopped calling, and she never ever like returned my calls or answered my call again. And like, I've never even heard from her. I don't know what became of her.
It's probably just like it was such a reminder of the situation or something.
That's what you were saying, that I reminded her of her only daughter and grandson that were gone.
Pain. And sometimes it's just, some people just can't, they don't want to, they just want to walk away.
But at that point, my life changed, because now the 2-bedroom apartment that I had, I could no longer afford. Of course, we didn't have life insurance.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it just became my dad covered the funeral, but it just became very disturbing and distraught. I was given like a month off of work, but then when I went back to work, I was worthless. I was worthless for, I would say it took a year to turn around. I got a lot of help from my parents, from odd jobs that I would take.
This is just based on just depression and just non-motivation and just the overall. Okay.
Yes. My job, Pollock Paper, was very good to me because they paid me full salary. Anyway, I mean, the specifics always, don't let me get caught up in the specifics.
It's fine.
Right?
It's fine.
But anyway, so like after that happened, I took odd jobs. So one of the odd jobs I took was at a company called West Telemarketing. I really found that jobs where I could just drone, where I could just be in a zone, like working and cleaning up and stuff like that, were the only jobs I could really do, where I didn't have to interact or do a lot of talking to people. I could just go there and just start doing something, was the jobs I could do. But what was breaking me out of that is I took this job at West Telemarketing where I was actually going to be on the phone. So I decided to take that job just to kind of like work my way back into it after trying to recover from that. So I was working for West Telemarketing. I was doing Sears siding, which was one of my favorite projects, where you were selling the siding for Sears. West is a phone company that calls different people.
Right.
So I did that I worked there about a year and a half.
It's a phone room. Right.
Well, but it's a high-tech phone because it had the predictive dialing, and you know, you're on the computer screen and you're reading
it's
a
not a
script.
boiler room. I mean,
Right.
it's I understand. I'm just saying it's a phone room where you're selling a product. It could be any product. But
And I've come to be I was pretty good at that. So to the point where when they brought in a new project that they were screaming about, we're going to pick selective people. Really, we're going to pick the people who have the highest sales,
Right.
and try to get this company, which was the AT&T Universal Card,
nice.
where we were actually calling people up and offering them the free AT&T Universal Card. So
I remember that. I had a $20,000 AT&T when it first came out. I got one for like $20,000.
Yeah.
It's nice.
This was my introduction to the credit world, a world that I didn't know anything about. Now, I told you that I had been gone to college about 6 years and had never been back home. Like when I left in my car for college, like I only talked to my mom, dad, sisters, and brothers. I had never been back home at all.
Plus, back then you paid heavily for like if a phone call was expensive.
Yes, long distance was per minute.
Yeah, people don't even realize now. Like you know, if you called somebody in Georgia, like you get a $60 phone bill, and it's like I talked for 20 minutes. What's going on?
Correct. You paid per.
And that's
minute.
25, 30 years ago.
And this was all the plans.
It's like getting a $200
the
fucking
family
phone bill.
and friends.
Yeah.
I think I did have that family. You know what I'm saying? Well, I had a family and friend plan that was $23 where I could call certain numbers unlimited. It was just all expensive.
Right.
The phone was an expensive luxury. But
these kids now, they don't know.
they have no idea. All right, so I got the job with AT&T Universal Card. Their goal was 2 an hour. 2 an hour was making me $10 an hour.
Nice.
I could do 4 or 5.
Big money.
Yes, I could do 4 or 5. So I was making very good money giving away this card. People who were pre-approved of limits. So they had multiple training, and they started explaining how the people were pre-approved, how they did a soft pull on their credit, and the credit bureaus were allowed. So their explanation was opening my mind to the credit and the credit bureaus, to the point where I pulled my credit and I really didn't have any, except for the car loan that my dad helped pay off, which was kind of put me in the middle of the road. But that introduction is what kind of led me down a fraudulent path, because even though I was making good money, I was still struggling with my bills. And by struggling with my bills, I needed any extra money. I couldn't go anywhere. It was either work and home. I couldn't really do anything. So what happened?
What about is this the one where you mentioned the electric?
The electric bill?
Yeah.
Well, because my car got repossessed multiple times and my dad helped me. Every month my electric bill would be, or my phone got turned off. Everything was being turned off and turned back on. I was actually chasing bills. That's how I was living, probably for about 8 months.
Well, you told me what the chick at the electric company told you.
All right, so
you do not want to say that?
Yeah, Matt loves this story, so I'll tell you.
I like this story. Because it's just what a fucking slap in the face.
Yes.
So
and it was. So my electric bill, of course, is off. It's Friday.
When I started being a mortgage broker, I was 3 months behind on my car. At one point, Ford Motor Credit is looking for my truck. This is when I started.
I think everyone in life goes through stuff like that. Yeah.
When you're young,
you struggle. You struggle for your bills, and I was chasing him. I was paying reconnect fees all the time. So one Friday, I had 2 jobs, and this was a 2 job because I went from my day job to West. So one Friday I came home and my lights are out. So it's Friday afternoon at 4:30 and my lights are out. I'm like, son of a bee. So I scrounged up everything. I'm talking rolling pennies and coins to go to the Kroger's to pay my light bill in order to get my lights back on. So I literally went broke. I might have had 70, 80 bucks, and that's exactly what I needed to get my lights on. I had to come up with another 15 bucks from everywhere, searching all coins and all possibility. I pay the light bill, and I get the paperwork. It's covered enough to get it turned back on. And I call, and the woman says, I'm sorry, but the soonest your lights will be on will be Monday. I said, yeah, but it's Friday. That's 2 days. I will be without power.
Right.
She said, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I go, that's ridiculous. She goes, no. You want to know what's ridiculous? What's ridiculous is in the last 8 months, your power's been turned off 8 times. I said, what? Who do you think you are? She goes, I know what I am, but what you are is a deadbeat. And I went from mad to, oh my God, I am a deadbeat. The realization that I couldn't pay my bills hit me as you're a failure. To sit at home in the dark at night. Yes. I went out to parks. That weekend, I had to occupy myself. And when I went home, it was to get into bed because I had no power. Putting food in my friends' refrigerators to save what I had and spending all my time outside of the house until it's time to go to bed. That's how I spent my weekend until Monday to turn my power on. And that's when it hit me that I was a deadbeat.
Right.
I'm a complete loser because I can't pay my bills. All right, so probably soon after that, which Matt loves, what happened to me is I'm on an AT&T Universal call making my sales pitch, and a gentleman, which I won't mention his name because I do remember his name.
Yeah, I know. You told me. I'm like, I can't believe you remember his name. You're like, oh,
I remember his name because
you remember a lot of names.
Yes. So I called this gentleman to offer him the Universal card. He had a $25,000 credit limit. So I'm offering him the card. He's like, he was very easy. It's like, blah, 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 blah. I go through the spiel. He goes, yeah, okay. So then I go through the confirmation. Now there, you have to tape record the confirmation in case there's any questions, just to, like, in case he challenged.
I never got this. Right, I didn't do this.
Right, and I didn't agree. So I asked him, can I record you? Yes. You do agree I can send you the card? He said yes. So I go through the whole spiel, you know, and I get to the end. I say, okay, sir, you should receive your card within the next 10 to 14 days. And he goes, hold on 1 second. That's what he tells me. You hear the background.
His wife.
Yeah, kind of argument you hear in the grocery store and when a couple's arguing.
Yeah.
He comes back and he says, never mind, I don't want it. I said, wait, hold on 1 second. And he hangs up. I'm like, damn it. Hey, watch your mouth on the sales floor. I'm sorry. I'm like, this son of a bee.
So watch your language.
Yes, I apologize. And I'm thinking, so I sit down because I'm frustrated. I sit there and I go, like, I don't even understand. This is a $25,000 card.
Right.
He doesn't have to pay interest. I'm sitting there, the benefits are going through my mind. He doesn't have to pay interest for 2 years.
Right.
He can pay off any of his other cards and he doesn't want it. So then I look and I say, I wonder if I could change this address.
You thought you know what? Who could use this 25 grand?
Exactly what my thought is.
And he deserves it.
He deserves it. So I change his address in the computer system to mine.
Which seems reasonable.
Which seems reasonable.
I could see that.
Right. So then I go back in and I record that he did not want to be recorded. So then I made sure I recorded another sale on top of his. Wrote down his pertinent information. I don't remember where the inspiration for this came, but when I changed the address, I said, just in case I get this card, I probably need all of his info. So I probably spent 10 minutes not working, processing all this to make sure I had it, setting it up, rewinding, listening, doing everything I need to do to wipe that sale out of the verbal system, right? And make sure it goes through. So I set all that up out of some inspiration I had, put the paper in my pocket and went back out on the phone and did my sales. So at some point I forgot about it because I think I got home and took the paper out.
You're probably thinking, I'll never get the card or anything.
Yeah, like that became a fantasy that vanished. And about 10 to 14 days later, because like I remember this because I never checked my mailbox because guess what always comes in the mail?
Yeah,
bills.
Yeah.
So when I decided to check my mailbox one day, like I'm going through and I see a letter in a unidentified envelope for this person. So when I look, I feel it.
So I know they didn't send me a credit card.
No. So then my mind goes, where's this information? I'm like, So I dash back to the house, scurry through everything, and I find his information. I activate his card.
Right.
You know, I can hear the, what is that music? Bum, bum,
yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Is that the AT&T music? What is that?
Dun, dun. Yes, like, I can't believe it. I have a $25,000 AT&T Universal card. And not only that, but in that same envelope is 3 convenience checks. How convenient was that?
Yeah, nice.
So
good times.
Good times. Oh, good times. Good. And you know, and back then, this is the early 90s, like 92, 93. This is 94. So a lot of places don't accept credit cards. So you have to go to high dollar places. So I'm in the gas station and using the card to buy gas and things like that. And it worked. So I probably do about $70, $80. But what I decided to do was write myself a $5,000 check on the convenience checks and deposit it in my bank account that hovered at 0 for years.
Right.
Like my bank said, hey, 0 or negative. That's where I like to stay.
I mean, and you're not thinking, hey, this is leading back to me.
No.
No.
Like, no, not at all. So I write the check, and like 3 days later when the check clears, I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself. This is pre-debit cards, by the way. This is pre-Visa, debit, all that. This is pre that era.
Yeah.
So hey, let me get $1,500. Absolutely. Thank you. So now I've got money. So guess what gets paid? Bills.
Yeah.
I've paid my rent for in fact, I paid my rent for the month coming up and decided, you know what? Go ahead and pay it for August, September, and October. What? You heard what I said. I pay my electric bill. When my bill comes in, I've got a credit. Like, look at that friggin' blue, baby. Red is out of there. I got it. So all my bills are paid. I don't even know what to do with myself. I've been out to eat. All my friends, I'm at the bar. Hey, everybody gets a beer on me. I don't even know what to do. So it dawned on me. It's like, hey, you still have $4,000 or like 3,800 left.
So you've gone through the 25,000?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I put a $5,000 check in my account. So I had like a little bit, almost $3,000 left. I'm trying to remember what the amount was. Because I wrote the first check for $5,000.
Right.
So I had $20,000 on his card.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote the check. And then of course I made the minimum payment of $58. I mean,
Of course.
I had to keep it.
No, you have to keep his credit in good standing.
So something hits me. It says, go home. I'm like, what? Go home. You haven't been back to Florida in...
Gotta go see mom.
Go see mom, dad, sis, brother. So I call and I buy an airline ticket, Delta Airline. I'm going home next weekend. Like out of the blue, I'm going home. I come back home. I rent a car. I've got money. I'm showering all my nieces and nephews with gifts and everything. So I make my first trip home after 6 years. Everybody loves me. I'm having a great time. I'm driving around. I rent a hotel room. I stay at my sister's house. You know, it was just a blast. Something I have never done, something that seemed impossible before that card came in the mail, I was able to do. So I think that kind of changed me. It was like being able to have money. Like people calling me the prodigal son. My mom goes, you must be doing good at your job. Yes, I am, Mom. Yes, I am. Of course, I write the other $5,000 check. It takes me about, because I went home about 4 times, but it takes me about 5 or 6 months to go through the $25,000. So I end up writing, like the next check I think was $10,000. That lasts me about, my bills are paid and I really don't know how to spend money and I don't have anything to spend money on except going home.
Right.
You know, but I went home, then I would take other trips like, hey, how about going to Vail to ski? Somebody had mentioned that. I'm like, Vail? I've never been there. I have no reason to go, but why the hell not? So I just took a couple of trips because I had no idea how to spend my money. All right. So what happened after that is I started traveling on Delta so much. So I should mention that the first guy I did just became the first guy.
Yeah.
So there was another person.
You became emboldened. Like I would say, I became emboldened by the fact that I'd gotten away with it.
Yes.
It was so easy. It was like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Exactly. So I did another guy and rerouted his card to my house.
It's like the movie. You remember the movie, The Invention of Lying? Where he's the only one who's lying. He's like everybody just believes me.
That's right.
Sorry.
All right, so I do like 3 or 4 other. So this goes on for about a year. Now this is important because there's a transition. So I start traveling. Like at the time, Delta had this weekend travel club where like they would pick spots where they'd give you tickets for $300 or $400. And so I would go there with a card. I just started spending money because I didn't really have a girlfriend per se. So I would just travel. I had nothing else going on in my life.
You remember, I don't know, this guy, Boziak?
Yes.
Like I remember when, so he same thing. He basically told me as he started making money, he's like, but at that time, I didn't know how to spend money. And I was like,
right.
And I was like, what does that mean? And he went, he's like I knew the only things that I was ever financially able to do didn't cost that much money. Like he's like, so like I would go to the strip club and instead of like tipping, you know, a couple bucks here and a couple bucks here, he goes, now like I'm fucking throwing money. Like here's $100, here's $100. He's like I'm blowing the money. He said, but even then I don't like, how many times can you go to the strip club? How many times can you go to the bar? He was and get so drunk that you can't get home. He's like, and he was like, so it's like I had nothing. He's like then I started buying Cadillacs. He's like, so I bought this Cadillac and then I bought another Cadillac. But he's like, but there's only so many things I know how to do. And then he met some rich guy, a rich kid. And the rich kid was like, nah, bro, we're going to go to Breckenridge and we're going to go to Vail and we're going to go to New York and we're going to get a private jet and we're going to buy these clothes and we're going to go. He's like, and now I started realizing like how to spend money, like what money could buy. And it changed, like it totally like changed everything.
And that's lucky for him because I never had.
You didn't have that, guy.
I didn't have that introduction.
Hey, listen, this is one part of a seven-part series that we're doing on Zach and Zach's story. It's probably going to be around 3 hours long. So if you're not subscribed, you want to make sure you get all the notifications and check out the whole story. Do me a favor, subscribe, hit the notification button, and share the video, leave a comment, do the whole thing because it's a great story. And check this out.